Hello Internet. Today I'm going to offer my thoughts on Dune because I have so many. I haven't read the book is my first disclaimer. I think I did try a long time ago, but it has that very like 60s novel vibe where it's like sort of impersonal, and I'm a modern girl. I can't. But today I'm going to be talking about the movie specifically. That's the perspective I'm coming from. So I'll start off with what I liked. Rebecca Ferguson. If I have to pick a white woman, it is Rebecca Ferguson. I love her. She is an amazing actress, and I originally followed her career from this show that she starred in called The White Queen, where she played a very similar character. Basically like this woman from a line of witches who becomes queen during the War of the Roses, and there's a ton of drama, and she just is so good at that very serious, solemn, Shakespearean-esque sort of role, and I just think she's so beautiful and so regal looking, and I'm just so glad she's kind of coming into the mainstream. Zendaya, obviously, she also just looked so regal and beautiful, just especially there was a part where, oh, spoilers I guess, but this movie's been out for a while, so it was this vision he was having, and her hair was just flowing in the wind, and she just looked so ethereal. I loved it. In general, just the movie had this very weighty Shakespearean vibe, which I feel like audiences are very, ever since the terrible Game of Thrones ending, people just want that serious sort of art of filmmaking, of storytelling, something that feels epic and weighty. I think this movie really excelled at very clear symbols and archetypes. Every character is such a clear archetype. Every imagery is a symbol that holds power and means something, showing the bull, associating the bull with Duke Leto, and associating the eagle ring with Leto and Paul Timothy Chalamet. Always just having these symbolic associations with characters so you know exactly who they are and what's at stake. I think I really enjoyed the relationship dynamics between the main family. First, I'll talk about Jessica and Duke Leto. They didn't have a whole lot of time together in the whole span of the movie, but in those moments you really understood the relationship between them, and I just love that she was his concubine. I love it because it almost makes us see how much he really does care and love her, because he shows her at his side and he treats her like his queen, but they're, for whatever political reasons they can't be married, but he just wants to be with her. And I loved the relationship between the mother and the son. I think I really haven't seen many examples of this kind of relationship in modern television and movies. Their relationship it's so dynamic. They just, from the first scene that they have together, where you find out that she is training him in these powers that she has, the way that he is protective of her. He's young and he's learning to display his own power, But it's like that fearlessness that he shows whenever he does protect his mother, even if he might be in over his head. And then even, you know, the tent scene where he sort of breaks and he feels all this pressure of what she wants him to be. You know, he has a moment of blaming her, but then they still come back together and they still care for each other. I think that was so well done. Like, the weight of that relationship was very powerful. Keeping going with this, I loved the voice. I loved that because it's, to me, such a clear magical concept. It's about speaking with your own power, but, you know, you have to practice it. You have to practice speaking magic words, and you have to find yourself in it, and you have to find the right tone and not nuance, and like, that was so powerful and so exciting just as a person who loves magic. I think in general the Bene Gesserit were so cool, like so interesting, so like scary, and you know, and I'll talk more about them when I talk about all the archetypes that were just so interesting. And then let's see, I think, you know, that is in general sort of what I liked. I'll go more into like the characters and how impactful they were in a little bit, but I do want to talk about the things that I didn't like. You know, this movie was like very spectacular, so it's like the stuff that I didn't like, well, let me just talk about it. First of all, they killed all the dark-skinned characters in the movie, which is just like, we're still at this point where dark-skinned characters can't get, you know, like, you could have made the chief of the Fremen a dark-skinned character. You could have made like characters that didn't need to be white. Like, you could have made them anything else, but like, it's just so weird when, you know, you have all these, first of all, you have like this white savior, another thing, you know, that's just like, and I know the book was like that, but whatever. So you have this like noble, rich white family, and like almost everyone that serves them is a person of color, and then you're like killing the dark-skinned characters. It's just like, okay, like, whatever. Of course that was gonna happen, but it doesn't need to happen. You know, white Jesus, Timothy Chalamet is the new white Jesus, and it's just like, it is such a basic plot in a way. It's like, we're really still doing white Jesus. Like, I don't know that it necessarily would have helped to have made him brown, or like they're brown or black, like, because it's still sort of like a colonizing, like colonizers coming and like saving, you know, the desert people, but you know, it's something. So you know, just the concept of like these rich people being noble and like caring about like all their people, it's like really nice, you know. It's like something that we wish was true in the world, but like this family, the Atreides, you know, the whole time they're like worried about their bottom line anyway. Like, they're there to farm, they're there to make money, and it's just like, how noble could they really be when like I don't know. So, you know, it's a very fantastical concept that it's just like not very realistic. I think one part that I really did roll my eyes at was like during the battle scene where like they were all getting blown up. It was like Gurney was leading a bunch of men like to charge at the enemy, and it's just like always a bunch of men with sticks running at each other, like, and I'm like, we know that battles aren't like this. Like, if you want to win, you got to get in formation. This is like, the Greeks knew this, the Romans knew this, like, get in formation. If you're all just going to be running at each other with sticks, it just looks silly, but whatever. So, you know, I could really go on and on about the problematic aspects of all of those things, but I think what is more interesting to talk about is like how this movie was so good and how it really is propaganda. Like, it's a new modern propaganda. So, you know, because it's good, it becomes more dangerous in a sense, because it's hard to critique things that people really like and love and feel like impacted by. But make no mistake, this movie is propaganda. It is propaganda for the state, for biblical narratives, propaganda for, like, you know, even white supremacy. So there's a lot happening, and it's good to critique these things. So all right, I am going to go into the archetypes that I saw so clearly in this movie that I just thought were so well done. And the first archetype I'm going to talk about is the triple goddess. So the triple goddess was very clear in this movie. She was there, she was invested, she had something to say and something to do. So we see the triple goddess represented through Zendaya's character as the maiden, Lady Jessica's character as the mother, and I don't remember her name, but she was like kind of the head Bene Gesserit woman that put Paul through the handbox trial. So, and she's going to be the crone. And even when we're like looking at a lot of the scenes with the Bene Gesserit, something that I just loved was like oftentimes in the background there would be three like kind of, you know, background extra characters of them. And, you know, the number 3 is very important when we're referring to the triple goddess, obviously, and also just like a lot of witch goddesses in mythology and history. For instance, like the Norns and the Fates, there's always 3 representing past, present, and future. And with the Bene Gesserit, because of the weight of their power, you know, they really are giving fates. Like, it's like people are upset by the influence they have and what they can do, because they feel like the Bene Gesserit are pulling all the strings. And this is how people feel about the fates. Like, it always feels like the fates are setting things in stones, and us mortals just have to like go with the flow and the tide of what they desire, when really like what the Norns and the Fates and the Bene Gesserit are sort of like, they are living in a different perspective than the rest of the mortals are, because they can see outside of just linear time because of the powers that they have. And so it makes them look like controllers of fate and destiny, but in a sense, like, they are just the interpreters of fate and destiny. And also they do have political wants and fears, and so there is some manipulation there, but like also it can be deeper than that. It can be darker than that. The next archetype I want to talk about is the bull imagery and Duke Leto. So whenever they would show the bull imagery, first of all, it was like the bull, I can't remember what that's called, but it's like that Spanish thing where you're like directing the bull. And now there was that statue that Paul was looking at, and that like represented the grandfather. And then whenever Leto you know, there was always imagery of like the bullhead and Leto, especially in the scene where he is about to make his last stand before he's killed. And so, you know, the first thing I thought watching that is Taurus, sign of Taurus. So Taurus is, you know, headstrong. They're headstrong in a way that, you know, they look very comfortable in their power. That's a powerful sign, a powerful archetype. But when they dig their heels in, you know, nothing can stop them. Their minds cannot be changed. And so it's a very noble archetype for this house of Atreides. It makes us look at them like, you know, they're strong, but they're not like the ram that has no like tact, basically. And then as far as like the I cannot remember what this is called, but the Spanish bull manipulator person, you know, they have a certain level of control and power. And I do kind of like that, like, it's like, oh, they might have, I have no idea what Dune is, like, if it has any relation to like the real world or if it's its own fantasy world. But, you know, it gives us this idea that like there's like a Spanish vibe kind of happening, which, you know, I think is cool. And then another thing I thought with the bull, and this is more like when we're talking about biblical archetypes, is the horned god and the golden calf. And so it's interesting because Paul's character is basically the son of the bull. So you could look at Paul as basically like the iteration of, you know, a Christ figure, but not of God, but of the bull god, which is a very interesting, like, you know, it brings up a little bit of satanic imagery. It brings up kind of old world, you know, pre-monotheism concepts. And it's like, I don't know, I love that. It's a bit dark and insidious, and I just love that. Like, is Paul the Antichrist? Like, I don't know. But, all right. And then another kind of like archetype having to do with the Atreides is the eagle ring. And this one I felt was so important because this is a very like symbolic, it's symbolic, and it's like a marker of this movie as propaganda. So the eagle is always like, an eagle figure, a golden eagle, is always, first of all, to do with the state, the head of state. You know, this comes through with Romans, this comes through with America, this comes through with Nazi Germany. When the eagle is in power, it represents like a state power. And the first time we see the eagle ring, it's actually upside down. So it's this kind of reversal of like, you know, you can think about it like Paul, this is like the burden that Paul needs to bear, that he needs to contend with, like becoming a leader, but specifically like a leader of the state, becoming the emperor, which I think, you know, is the goal for that character. And it plants in the audience's mind like we need to respect this character because he has a certain level of authority, noble authority, god-like authority, because this is also the symbol of an eagle. A golden eagle is also the symbol of Zeus. Another thing about both the bull and the eagle is they are often associated with you know, the cardinal directions, the angels, the Lamassu, like, which typically is bull, eagle, human, and God, there's a fourth one, but I can't remember. And so I think the eagle has a Scorpio. It's related to Scorpio in some way. For some reason, I really don't know why, but so these two images of like associating the bull and the eagle with this house Atreides it's planting in the audience's mind that these people are mythic levels of importance for leadership, for state leadership, for, you know, it gives them a mythic, godlike vibe that makes us almost, you know, you're supposed to respect it. You're supposed to respect the authority. You know, I feel like the eagle symbol, it can be dangerous because it's such a powerful symbol, and this movie definitely knows what it's doing with that. All right, the last archetypes I kind of want to talk about were like these noble warrior archetypes, specifically when we're talking about Duncan, Idaho, and Gurney. These are like the, you know, it's like that jarhead vibe, very broy. Like, by the way, Jason Momoa was looking very broy in this movie. You know, he's cute, I love it, but it was giving like JMU Springfest vibes almost. So but you know, there was even that part where it's like, oh, he's going native. Like, that part was a bit of an, I don't know, eye roll part, just because it's just, I don't know, there's no sensitivity, you know, they really are like, I don't know what to say about that. But anyway, because the characters were so well done, because they were so like, what is it, magnanimous, or like, they just, you know, Jason Momoa did a great job. Like, he has that older brother vibe with Paul, and it really like invests you into like their characters as like proficient warriors that like know what they're doing, and they have a core set of values, and like that, you know, in some ways is like military propaganda. Like, it makes you feel empowered that they're warriors, and they're good at what they do, and like they care, and they like even die for the cause. It's you know, inspiring, it's spectacular. And when I say spectacular, this movie was a spectacle. It was meant to dazzle. Like, I feel like spectacular doesn't necessarily mean good. It's just like, it really catches the eye. It you know, you look at it and you can't look away. That's spectacular. And that's what any good propaganda needs, is an element of spectacle to confuse and distract the mob. All right, I think those were like my top favorite archetypes. Yeah, those were just, they were so strong, and I loved it. So now I want to talk about biblical narratives in this movie, which when I walked out of this movie, I was like, wow, they just rebranded the Bible, this movie, because this movie is nothing but a Bible story, like a mythic Bible story. And, you know, the Bible really is a book of myths. Like, it's a book of history, but it's also a book of myths. And especially with Hollywood, like, and propaganda, you know, what you need to do to control a narrative is to mythologize these stories and shape them in a way that shapes people's minds. So you can read the Bible a million different ways, and obviously people have written it a million different ways. And, you know, there are a lot of powerful stories in the Bible, but as far as the English Bible goes, it has always been written in a way to control the masses. The narrative that it offers us is, you know, we are told that this is how we should be living our lives. And now that we're in this age of, younger people are not going to church. They aren't as interested in religion. They're not reading the Bible. So what you need to, shape people's minds is a new way to tell Bible stories. And Dune is a perfect example, because it has all three examples of the three Abrahamic religions. And I'll go down the list. So we'll start with Christianity. This one's pretty obvious. Paul is the chosen one, the chosen savior to lead people to the kingdom of heaven, based on bloodlines, based on fate. Blood is very important in this movie. And with Christ, or with Jesus Christ, as far as Christians go, what they believe is that he has the lineage to back up being a son of God, because Joseph was from the line of David. And so with Paul, his mother has purposefully gone and found the bloodline that she needed to find, mixed with her own blood, which is heavily important. Matrilineal bloodlines in Jewish faith is important, and for the Bene Gesserit it's no different. Which I did love that scene where it's like they were saying, oh well, Paul is also Jessica's son. I mean, her influence is just as important in who he's becoming. But anyway, so you've got Christ the chosen one, the savior. You've also got Moses. He led the people out of exile, out of the desert. Well, he kind of led them into the desert, but it's the it's all there. He's leading. Paul is supposedly going to be leading the Fremen out of the desert into this lush, beautiful Holy Land, which is also kind of, I don't know, kind of iffy, just because it's well, isn't the desert their homes? I guess if they really want to leave, but it does seem like the Fremen, they like being there, but I guess, or it's their home, it's their home planet. Do they really want to leave if they know it so well? But also, I guess the society is obsessed with prophecy, so whatever. I don't know what to say about all that. But and then the third example is Hagar and Ishmael. So Ishmael is the supposed father of Islam, and his mother was Hagar, a concubine of Abraham. And Abraham was told by his wife and by God in the Bible to banish the two of them into the desert. So basically Paul is the combination of all three kind of mythical and quote-unquote historical, biblically historical sons of Abraham. So these things, even if you haven't read the Bible, because these Bible stories are part of the collective unconscious, they're going to be manipulating your brain into giving Paul's character a certain weight. He is the son of God, basically. And this is important because, it's especially important because so many people don't really know these Bible stories anymore, so they have no context for understanding why they think this shit is so mystic and deep and epic, So all in all, this movie was really well-made propaganda. I feel we haven't necessarily had something like that in a while. Something that just feels so weighty and so epic and so spectacular and so serious, you know? Like, it's so sometimes rare to see a film or a movie really understand the weightiness of it. Like, it takes itself seriously and it takes the audience seriously. It feels like, you know, it feels good to watch something where you're not just assumed to be a fucking idiot as a moviegoer. But that's what makes good propaganda so dangerous. It's you get wrapped up, you get sucked in, and like, you know, people get so intense about defending the things they like that it, you know, they can't see that it's propaganda, and that's why it's so effective. Anyway, I mean, I'm going to watch the next few movies, of course. Hopefully they're good. You know, I have a very, like, I kind of have this rule where I've really only watched the first season of something because, like, movies and shows tend to be not good after, like, the second or third one. But I feel like these movies will actually be good and satisfying, which will be cool. And you know, I can't wait to critique whatever whatever propaganda is going to be put out in those as well. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Dune. And thanks so much. Happy holidays.